Hello, and welcome to Teach It Like You Mean It, a podcast tailor made for intermediate phase educators right here in South Africa. My name is Margaret Botman, and our goal here is to share practical ideas, strategies, and resources that can make us all better educators. Whether you're listening in on your way to school, during a school break, or while getting things done at home, this podcast is for you. Our guest on today's episode is Larishka Labeskaghni, an accomplished educator holding a master's in special needs education. With over 7 years of teaching experience, including roles as a post-level 1 educator and department head, Larisha has worked extensively in both local and international settings, focusing on learners with severe intellectual disabilities. Join us as we dive into her insights on supporting learners transitioning into new school phases. Hi, Larisha. How are you doing?
Hi, Margaret. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm also doing great. I'm so excited. It's festive season, holidays, and spending time with the family. So I'm feeling really, really great.
Yeah, it's an awesome time of the year, and we are looking forward to the new year.
Okay. Now to jump straight into the conversation of today, I'd like for you to introduce yourself to our listeners, share a little bit about who you are, and how did you end up becoming an educator?
So, like Margaret mentioned, I'm Larisha Labeskaghni. I'm a qualified teacher with a background in special needs education. Um, it's that typical story since a little girl. I played with my toys being a teacher, and when I had to make a decision in grade 11, I decided no, teaching is for me.
Mhm.
Um, I actually started off enrolling for as a social worker at the University of
Oh.
Potchefstroom, Northwest University, and
Mhm.
then I just woke up one morning during the orientation program, and I said, you know what, social working, being a social worker is not for me. Let's try and apply for the teaching degree, foundation phase teaching, and there was actually space for me, and that was a miracle in itself. During my practicals, I went to public schools, private schools, and special schools for learners with special needs. And I just fell in love with the special needs inclusivity setting. Yeah, and from there on, I just dived deeper in, focused on some research, content writing, and then I'm currently also teaching on an international platform online as well as student teachers at a very well-known private institute. So yeah, I'm very happy in what I'm doing, and I feel like I'm making a difference, and
Yeah.
that's the best part for me.
You really are. And I think we are currently in a time where there's a lot of information lacking, more so around special needs education. And I believe that, teachers like yourself are playing a very significant role in educating other educators as well, as far as special needs is concerned, and also even parents in learning what special needs is and how to better cater for our learners.
Yes, absolutely.
So, can you share a little bit about your background and experience with then helping learners transition into new phases?
Absolutely. My background in education has really been centered around helping learners transition smoothly, whether it's between grades, phases, or even school environments. I've had the privilege of working with learners facing severe challenges, particularly in a school for learners with severe intellectual disabilities, as mentioned before or
Yeah.
earlier, where I spent over 6 years. In that role, I was responsible for understanding how to make transitions as seamless as possible, not just for the learners, but as well for their families.
Mm.
One of the key strategies I implemented as a departmental head was creating individual support plans that mapped out each learner's specific needs during transitions. Research highlights the importance of involving parents, therapists, and teachers in a collaborative process. And we
Hmm.
follow that closely. For example, when learners move from the foundation phase to the intermediate phase, we hold a meeting called a handover meeting, where
Mm.
foundation phase teachers share detailed insights with the intermediate phase colleagues. Now, whether I'm lecturing education students or creating resources for Twinkle, I'm always
Yeah.
advocating for what is called the three C's. of smooth transitions, which is
Spot on.
communication, consistency, and collaboration. In
Okay.
fact, yes, some of my Twinkle content also focuses on checklists and visual aids for learners, which are backed by research showing that structured routines can significantly ease anxiety during transitions. Is ultimately supporting transitions is about helping learners feel safe, confident, and supported. And that's been the thread running through all the different roles I've taken on.
I find with learners, there seems to be more so a challenge in grade 4, because now coming from foundation phase up to grade 3, and then in grade 4, the learners moving into intermediate phase, taking on more subjects or extra subjects in comparison to a foundation phase. How do you then um, assist in that space? So, what sort of challenges have you encountered with learners when it comes to this transition?
So, one of the major or one of the big challenges that I, as a teacher, experienced was the lack of independence, the skill.
Okay.
They couldn't work or do things on their own because they 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 didn't receive the necessary skill development in that area to transition from one phase to another. And
Hmm.
transitioning also is not necessarily from grade to grade. It's also in the small things, moving from one subject to another. And then we
Mm.
see this major stress factors that arises. We see a change in their behavior, in their discipline system, how they complete tasks, etc. So there's many different ways and aspects that I have experienced as a challenge and also as a major change within our learners.
I know you mentioned anxiety a little bit earlier when you were answering one of the questions. So, how would you say, as teachers, we can help our learners with, dealing with anxiety when it comes to these changes? I'm also speaking of teachers who will be receiving learners in a new phase in 2025.
It's important for teachers to clearly communicate change, like new timetables, subject-specific classroom, and gradually introducing learners to these new routines. For
Hmm.
learners, familiarizing themselves with a new space like a classroom for each subject and the new playground through tours or orientation programs and activities help them to build confidence and to know what to expect. That's the most important part, to know what happens next, where am I going, how does it look. Collaboration between the current and the future teacher is also very important, as well as a buddy system, ensuring a smoother transition and emotional support.
So now, with picking back on that, I know, like, with us as teachers, we need a lot of collaboration, yes, amongst ourselves as teachers from the previous grade, moving on to the next grade, but also the support of parents is needed, I think, in these transitions. And I'd like to find out from you, what role do you think that parents can play in supporting their learners during this transition time?
I think we as parents sometimes forget that the environment you create at home is the
Mm.
environment that the child expects at school. So if there's chaos in your household, the child is going to react to chaos. So you want to create a calming environment at school that will flow over to the school environment. That's in the ideal world. We all know how it goes sometimes in our households. We have to manage a few things. And if you as a parent experience transition with a new change, then your child can also experience that stress factor of a new routine or a new environment, new phase, etc. You as a parent clearly have to communicate to your child what is going to happen. How does the teacher look? What subjects will the child or the learner take on? So there's many factors to take into consideration, but the main
Yeah.
thing is communication between the teacher and the parent. That's one major aspect, and it's something that we lack because the expectation of communication is so high. Sending
Mm.
messages at 10 at night is not the right thing to do. So to have that boundaries with your teacher and the teacher with the parents are very important. But
Yeah.
communication between the two role players is one major thing that sometimes lacks in a school environment.
I like that you touched a bit on boundaries and like also just how the expectations for communication are really high when it comes to teachers and also parents. But in as much as we want this relationship to be conducive to work in order for us to support our learners in the best way possible, what sort of practical tips then would you give in ensuring that teachers are able to bring parents in and ensuring that parents are engaged and they're able to participate in their learners' education? What practical tips would you give to teachers specifically?
So one thing to make it easier and to have like a clear communication line with parents is to create a virtual classroom. I know we don't always have the necessary resources for something like this, but just to
Yeah.
make a quick recording of how does the classroom look, how do you look, how does the
Oh.
other teachers look, or even like a photo album, an interactive photo album. And we know there's a lot of free resources available online where you can actually create like an engaging interactive booklet or like posters, wallpapers, etc., and share it with parents. Then they can have a visual clear idea of what is going on, how does the teachers look like, um, and
Mm,
just like a short info sheet to say what is your favorite things and when is your birthday. It's such small things that makes a major difference, and all those resources are also available on Twinkle.
yeah.
On Google Meets, there's so many resources available where you can take parents into your classroom. How do you want the books to look like? How do you want learners' belongings to be labeled as? Do you want a name tag? Do you want a picture symbol? Does the book have to be a certain color, etc.?
Mm,
And that's simple things that you can put into place as a parent with a teacher and a teacher to a parent, just to make it easier for everybody, and then you are on the same page always. Then we know the very well known WhatsApp. We tried out groups in the past, and everybody said, just do not add me on a group again, please. And we understand that. But there's also a new platform or a way to connect with parents, and that is
yeah.
through a community on WhatsApp, where you, as the teacher, can communicate to the parents, but they can't respond individually to the message.
Mm,
They have to private message you. I also know that some teachers have a second number, a school number for that matters,
yeah.
or a work number, and that is just to set the boundary in place.
So you touched on something that I thought, oh my gosh, this is so interesting because I've actually never done this when you spoke about giving like a virtual tour of your classroom, so that the parents can see what the classroom looks like. Previously with us, I would just have the parents come in and see the space for themselves, but also with that, only one or two parents would come in out of a class of like 30 learners. So I think that's a very great tip that I'm hoping that our listeners can implement to, include the parents into teaching and having them involved and see what goes on in the classroom.
Yes, and if we move to the different able learners, learners that experience some anxiety or a certain disability or hinderness, there's many
Hmm.
different ways to describe it. But with students that find certain situations challenging or a new environment, a parent can also just play the video and say, see, that is your desk, that's where you sit, there you
Yeah.
can find your bag. It just makes it easier for a child with severe anxiety to just watch
Hmm.
the video over and over and over again. It will take
Okay.
time, but if you don't change your classroom every year, you will spend 1 year doing recording the virtual classroom, and the following year you will just forward the video again.
How do you think that the school can then prepare their learners for changes, especially within academics? So moving from grade 3 to then grade 4, more subjects, more work.
So in grade 3, teachers really try their best to promote independence, if that's the right way to describe it.
Yeah.
to set our tasks in a more independent way. I think parents also need to take on the responsibility that you can't do the assignment for the child anymore, because it makes it so challenging at school. And teachers are at the point where they give the formal assessments in the classroom and not to do take home assessments or assignments anymore, because they want to promote independence. So, from a school side, to ease the transitioning, the grade 3 teachers can arrange for a day to visit the grade 4 classrooms, where it's like an interactive, engaging time of the day where they just go from one class to the next class, get to know the teachers, see the classroom layout. I saw online there were a couple of schools that also had these class visits, and each subject teacher had like a short, small activity, interactive activity for each class to do in the classroom, and that also gave an overview of what to expect the following year. And then when
Mhm.
the child or the learner is in the new grade, to take it easy. I know we are so results driven, and we want to
Yeah.
see performance and results and the child just flourishing in the new grade. But it
Yeah.
takes time, and you get that one child that I want to say like shoot out. It's easy going, just having friends going on. It's easy for that child, but for the next child, it is daunting. It's so stressful. They can't make friends. They can't remember the teachers' names. And we always have to think of that one. That one, even if it's 1 out of 30, that finds
Yeah.
it challenging. So to break our tasks step by step, to have like
Mhm.
checklist next to the task to see, okay, I need to remember to draw a line under the date. It's simple things. I need to start on the left side. Just like a short, small checklist somewhere in the classroom or somewhere on the table, even if it's just for that one learner.
Mhm.
It's small things that you can put into place. And don't change your classroom every term. even if you are working in a
Really?
mainstream Even if you are working in a mainstream school, um
Yeah.
when you go to a famous grocery shop and
Oh
you don't
yeah, yeah,
find
yeah.
your yogurt where your yogurt is, that's that very short anxiety that you feel inside.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Where it is, where can
Oh
I
my
go? And
God.
you try to look for someone to help you. That is how a learner feels every single time there's a change at school or
Oh
a
my
change in the
gosh.
classroom. And it's so simple. But if
Y-
the one day you put the books on another place because you just thought it will look better there, no, no, no,
Oh
no,
my
no,
God.
don't do that.
Are you
Don't do
serious?
that.
I'm
I am
thinking to
serious.
myself, I like beginning of the year, I'd look at all the different classroom decorations on the Twinkle website, and I'm like, okay, I'll start with this one for term 1. Term 2, I'll move to this one. Term 3, I'll move to this one, and I completely change up my classroom because I'm thinking the learners are probably getting bored of coming into the same space, things being on one side. I didn't know that this could actually affect them on that level. But now that you explain it, I do know the frustration of walking into a grocery store and things have been changed around. And I'm like, what's going on here?
Exactly, exactly. And you know what? There's so many uh, learners are so tired and overstimulated already.
Yeah.
So moving into a space that looks different and feels different, it's a major thing. Even okay, this is the extreme now, Margaret, but
Yeah.
even a teacher who changes her hair can be stressful for a child.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Yeah, no,
obviously,
this is interesting.
that's the complete opposite. Now you also get the students or the learners that just takes it as it comes, the easygoing
Yeah.
children. So you get
Mm.
the two opposites, complete opposites. But we can't just. There's a time where we focused on the middle way, the child or the learner that's the in betweener. It's either he's a little bit anxious or he's a little bit easygoing. We always focus on that one, and the ones that is easygoing, the extreme opposite, we just
Mhm.
leave them. But we forget about the one that finds everything in
Everything
the
difficult.
like
Yeah.
yeah challenging and overstimulating, etc.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I'm really learning a lot today. So if we were to go onto the Twinkle website, which resources specifically would you say you're recommending that teachers use specifically for the transition period?
So if you go onto the website, the welcoming packs, where you
Mm-hmm.
introduce yourself as a teacher, those are very handy. Also, the activity sheets all about me is a
Yes.
activity sheet that a child or a learner can complete, and you also get to know your learners. There's also visual schedules that's very handy where you just give a visual layout of the timetable of the day. We know in some schools that they don't see their admin teacher, the main teacher, every morning. But if you
Mm-hmm.
can create like a visual timetable for your learners, that will also be so handy. Add a symbol to the science, add a symbol to technology, just to make that quick um, visual schedule for the learners, and that will also assist them to quickly take out the timetables and see, oh, we are going to this symbol now, let's quickly go to language. That is something very easy to do. So yes, there's a lot of resources available on
Mm-hmm.
Twinkle, and if customers can't or listeners can't find something, or they are looking for something specific, to please log a customer request. We are so hands-on with the customer request, and
Yeah.
we really want to help our teachers teach effectively.
To close off our conversation, I would like to find out, or just hear from you, any final tips that you think our teachers should have or know in creating a positive transition experience.
Okay, to create a positive transition experience, teachers should focus on clear communication, keeping
Okay.
learners, parents, and colleagues informed. If you see anxiety is rising within a certain learner, to communicate it with the colleagues, because you're all working together, and have open communication with parents. Choose your words wisely as a teacher. Don't have a know-it-all idea, and consistency in the routines help familiarity and comfort. It's also important to build emotional connection with the learners by showing empathy and offering reassurance. Lastly, celebrate small successes and encourage a growth mindset. Help learners to
Mhm.
feel confident and supported through this transitioning process.
Oh, thank you so much, Larisha. Thank you for joining us today. As we conclude our discussion, I would like to encourage our listeners to check out our resources at www.twinkle.co.za for a variety of resources to support you on your teaching journey. Don't miss out on the incredible materials and support that Twinkle offers. We help those who teach.